Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where Karens truly believe the world revolves around them and nobody else matters. And in today's episode, Karens are threatening lawsuits over the most ridiculous things, guys. And OP tells a story where this cranky old man keeps suing him over and over again because OP won't sell him his store. Guys, it's such a wild one today. I hope you enjoy the stories. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this is not much of a long one here, but I had a Karen call today to take care of a hornet's nest, and the guy refused to pay what we charge, so he did it himself with hilarious results. Well, for me anyway. Basically, the guy calls in and he was complaining that he had this hornet's nest and they were bothering him. And it turns out he called other companies and ends up picking mine because I had good reviews. And I'm thinking, okay. Since it was a hornet's nest he was dealing with, I agreed to come out to take a look, to give him a quote for removal. I get there and take a look and let him know the cost for treating the nest would be X amount of dollars. And if he agrees, we can then remove the nest. Well, as soon as he heard the pricing, he says to me, "Wait, how much? No way I'm gonna pay that much to get rid of a stupid nest. I will not pay that amount." I tell him, well, I understand that, but it can be tricky to deal with a nest this size, especially during hot days like we're having now, and it is hornet season, so they're very active. Added to the fact that it's a very hard to reach spot. Now, it's worth noting that the nest was about 20 feet off the ground, built under the roof of his house, meaning you would have to go up a ladder with gear and spray. The guy's standing his ground though, and he says, well, I'm not paying that. I will pay you half that amount at most. This is something I could easily do, but I've decided to pay you. And yeah, the guy's talking like he's doing me a favor. I just respond, I'm sorry, I can't give you half off. It's gonna be X amount, as it's gonna be a very risky job. At that, the guy says, I don't care, you're asking for way too much. I can do it myself, you know, with a can of Raid for like $7. I tell him, well, you can try, but we have trained technicians that have specialized equipment and chemicals. The cost is based on the time it takes to spray a nest and the amount of chemical to be used. Now, if you try to rid this nest yourself, you might get stung and it will not end well. He then says to me, oh, don't you give me that garbage. You are trying to sell your business. You know what? Fine, I'll give you $75 and no more. The other pest company I called this morning is doing it for $70. Hearing him say that, I know no company could charge that little. So I tell him, well then, if they're giving you that price, you should probably go to them. He then says, hey, no, don't you talk to me like that. Because of your attitude, I'm not paying you more than $30 for it now. I can do it myself. I know your type. You people just want to rip other people off. Well, not me. I'll do it myself and I'll do a better job than you guys ever could. Hearing that, I tell him, well, by all means, you can try yourself, but I do not recommend it. My recommendation is have a professional do it for you. Please call us back if you change your mind. I then go back to my truck to leave the guy, and he shouts, you know what, F you and F your company, I'll do it myself. Now all of this happened in the morning, around 8 o'clock, and the guy calls back late afternoon as we're about to close, like 4:30, not happy at all. It turns out that disturbing a hornet's nest during a hot day with zero protective clothing is not a good idea. So the guy calls me and says, you son of a bitch, I got stung all over and I'm suing you for refusing service and telling me to do it myself. The audacity, right? So I tell him, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I did inform you to not try yourself. He then says to me, now listen here, I only did it myself because you were trying to charge me so much. Now I'm stung all over and I have hundreds of the yellow mother effers flying all over my backyard. What are you going to do about this? I just tell him, well, we can come out if you'd like, but it won't be today. How about sometime next week? He then says, next week? That won't work at all. I demand you come right now and fix this or I'm suing you for all you're worth. I got stung all over and it's your fault. At this point, I just tell him, okay, well, take care. I then hang up and go back to work. The guy did try calling back a few times, but I ignored him. I did end up phoning a few other past people I know, and it seems he has a reputation of being an a-hole to deal with, and he's been blacklisted by most of them. The guy never wants to pay what they quote him, and he always tries to lowball them even further by saying the job's not done right or calling them on non-existent damage to his property. Oh my goodness, customers like that guy are the absolute worst, aren't they? And you know what? Sometimes people like this guy need to learn things the hard way. Sometimes people do need to know when it's necessary to pay to have things done professionally. Like, as soon as I read that he was gonna take a can of Raid to that nest, I knew it wasn't gonna end well for him. And on top of that, the guy's lucky he didn't fall off the ladder and ended up with a broken back or something. With that said, the suing part is completely ridiculous, like trying to blame OP for what happened. We all know he's probably too cheap to pay for a lawyer anyway, right? I'm 26 years old, and I decided to open my own business this year. Moving forward in this post, I should point out that I'm from a small town of about 1,000 people in the Midwest. Now, because of this, everyone has some sort of connection with someone. We went out to the liquor store in the closest city, which is 30 minutes away, a small city of about 8,000 people. When we were grabbing some alcohol for a party, I was looking at the prices and I saw how insane the prices were. For a 6-pack of local beer, we were charged $15. I was thinking about this, and I figured I could probably make bank opening a liquor store. So back in February, I was furious with my crappy job, and I was thinking out loud how cool it would be to own my own business to a friend. My friend's mom happened to work at a local bank, so a couple of weeks later, I went in and I met with my friend's mom and I pitched my idea with the research I'd done on the alcohol prices and estimated income. I got the loan at a fantastic interest rate. I bought a building and I hired my dad to help me renovate the building. After working everything out with distributors, getting proper licenses, and getting paperwork I needed for the government, I was ready to open my liquor store in May. I then started taking out ads in the local newspaper advertising my store and my prices. When I was in talks with distributors, I learned that even with inflation and everything else, the liquor stores in the city had like an 80% markup. So I talked to a local business owner and he suggested that I have around a 35 to 40% markup. Because of this, I was significantly cheaper than the closest liquor store, and I had a much wider selection than the gas stations and small local stores nearby. My first week after opening, I made a $4,000 profit. It was great being my own boss. If somebody was rude to me, I would give them the, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can do your business elsewhere." Now that's not to say it wasn't difficult running my own business, especially that my only employee was my girlfriend, and we were both working 6 or 7, 10 to 12-hour days a week. I was both the manager, the accountant, and the cashier. But man, it's so much nicer knowing that I can tell somebody to pound sand for being a prick. A couple of weeks after Memorial Day, some old guy walks into my store, a couple of minutes after I opened. The guy seemed friendly enough, but eventually he offered to buy my store. Now I'm not gonna say the amount, but it wouldn't have even covered my principal on the loan. I of course rejected the proposal outright and I refused to negotiate the sum higher. The guy then walks out of my store saying, "Well, you'll be sorry you rejected that offer." The next month, a guy walks into my store and asked if I was the owner. After saying yes, I was informed that my business was being sued by this random guy, who I've never heard of, for libel. After he left, I was freaking out, and I decided that I was gonna close early. When I got home, I googled the guy, and I soon saw a picture of the guy that tried to buy my store. It turns out that that's the guy who owns both the liquor stores in the nearby city, and it also happens that he's on the city council. So with a bit of further digging, I learned that this city has an ordinance that reads, "Any business institution that does not fulfill the definition of a restaurant, tavern, or liquor dispensary will be excluded from obtaining a license for the sale of alcohol." Later, I discovered that same guy happens to be the head of the board, which approves liquor licenses. I love small town corruption. Either way, I had a major issue. My uncle happens to be a lawyer in a neighboring state, so I decide to call him to try to get some legal advice. I talked to him and I read the documents I'd been handed, and after receiving all of the information I read off, I was expecting to get some sort of advice. But instead, I heard him say, "Hang on, I gotta make a call." My uncle hangs up and I'm freaking out. I was actually about to post my first post to r/legal advice. And I'll be honest, I just wanted somebody to tell me that it was gonna be okay, and I didn't need to crawl to this guy on my hands and knees. My uncle calls back soon after, and he says, "Hey OP, I just got off the phone with my partner. He agreed that we can take your case pro bono. If you'd like to accept, we can discuss at my office tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And this is how I learned that my uncle is on the bar in 3 states. So we meet and we discuss the case. It turns out the guy filed the libel suit against my business based on the ads I took out in the local newspapers. The guy claimed that my ads were targeted to damage his and his business's reputation. There were a few other things that I had no idea what was being referenced, but my uncle assured me that we would win this case no problem. 3 weeks later, the case is dismissed. But after, my uncle says to me, people like that piece of crap will likely try to file another suit against you. If that happens, call me. I promise I'll help. The next day, I get served again, but this time I'm the defendant, not my store, me. And I swear, I look at the documentation and the only thing that changed was instead of my business's name, mine was listed as the defendant. So the same thing happens. 4 weeks later, the case is dismissed. Over the next 3 months, I was sued just as many times. Before the 5th hearing, we had a settlement meeting. My uncle, the judge, the guy suing me, his lawyer, a bailiff, and I were sitting in this room. The judge says, "You two have been in court 4 times already. Is there any way we could come to an agreement that'll stop this cycle of faulty litigation?" The guy's lawyer says they have an offer, and they hand it to my uncle, who then hands it to me. It essentially read that he'll stop all litigation if I sell my business for about 30% of the remaining loan principal. I outright rejected the offer, and I made a counter offer. I said, if you drop this case, I won't sue your ass for harassment. The guy then bursts out laughing, and he says, "Sue me? With what money?" These legal fees alone probably drained you. You should be happy that I chose to extend this offer and not sue your ass into bankruptcy and buy that crap hole from the bank when they foreclose on your dumb ass. Hearing that, the judge, the bailiff, and the guy's own lawyer were all looking at him aghast for saying the silent part out loud about the real reason why I was getting sued. My uncle then straight out said to him, "Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently you were never told. I've taken all of my nephew's cases pro bono. The only money he's spent on your litigations is gas. And bluntly, sir, I think your outburst has just ensured a suit against you." After that, we just left, and I was informed a few days later the litigation was dropped. Right now, my uncle and I are talking about the future suit against this guy. I want to sue the guy for a very high amount to try to get press attention on this guy and his sketchy actions. My uncle did warn me that we need to be careful because if we set the damages too high, it'll look like we're being vindictive. This suit also won't be pro bono, but after getting sued 5 times for free essentially, I'm not gonna complain. Looking back on this, I'm so thankful that my friends and family supported me the entire way, especially my uncle. Without my uncle, I would have absolutely lost my business. Oh yeah, that was some freaking entitled BS right there, guys, and the corruption was so insane. I'm just glad OP had his uncle to represent him, and I hope they go after everything that guy's got, and I can't wait to read the future post where OP goes absolutely nuclear revenge on this man and takes everything from him. Because honestly, if that guy's petty enough to try to bankrupt OP with stupid lawsuits, he deserves to have everything he owns burnt to the ground. Okay, so the story is, my little brother dumps his girlfriend Shelly for a hotter one, and stops paying her bills. Shelly loses her job a few days later, and she's in danger of losing her apartment. My little brother then feels bad for her, and he begs me to find her some kind of work, like any kind of work. I jokingly tell him that she could mow my lawn for like $50, as the guy I used to hire charges $80. My brother jumps on this and thanks me profusely, and he calls Shelly to tell her the good news. So Shelly ends up using my lawnmower. I give her the key to my shed. She does a good job and I pay her $50. No big deal. 2 days later, she comes to my workplace and she says to me, "Okay, so you owe me another $50. I mowed your lawn again." Hearing that, I scratch my head and I tell her, "Hey, I know you're having financial difficulties, but normally I only get my lawn mowed like once a month." We go back and forth and I pay her another $50. I chalk it up to Shelly being usual dumb Shelly and I forget about it. But suddenly, Shelly's everywhere. She's showing up at my office when she knows I'll be there and she demands cash. She's saying that she was in the neighborhood and she noticed my lawn needs mowing, so she did it. My secretary points out that Shelly has shown up 8 times in the past 6 weeks. On a whim, I check her Facebook page, and I notice every time she's been in the neighborhood, she and her friends have gone and gotten drunk that night, taking selfies in some not-so-cheap clubs. So much for financial difficulties, right? And here's something to add. To everybody saying, well, you're a doormat, or wow, you're dumb, I thought I was giving charity to a young single mother about to be homeless. I thought the $350 was keeping her from starving while letting her retain some dignity. F me, right? So I email Shelly and I tell her that under no circumstances is she to be on my property unless I call her first. I then changed the lock on the shed that houses the mower. I figured this'll solve the problem. So the next day, according to my neighbor's story, Shelly stops by my house, knowing I'm at work. She then tries to unlock the shed with her key and she notices the lock has changed. She then screams and kicks things, and that's when she notices my bedroom windows partially open, and she climbs inside. Apparently, she didn't find the new key, and she left through the front door a few minutes later, leaving my front door wide open for anyone passing by. Shelly then ganged up on me when I got home. She starts screaming that I owed her money for her time, because she would have mowed the lawn if she could. And I'm thinking, what? I remind her that I told her not to come over unless I called her first. She then demands that she's not leaving until she gets $50. I tell her she can wait all day if she wants. She then starts crying, saying she doesn't have gas money to drive her car to the gas station, that she was planning to use the money to walk into town and to buy gas. I tell her, oh, so you weren't planning to go to the well-known concert tonight? And the look on her face was absolutely priceless. I knew damn well that she was planning to go with her friends because she's stupid enough to rave about it on her Facebook page. She then pouts and stammers and she sits in her car. I go inside and turn the TV on, and it takes her half an hour to admit defeat and to speed away. So much for not having any gas. Now the best part of this was telling my brother. He was stunned. He said he was considering getting back together with her, but this behavior killed that possibility. Update number 2. It's been about a week now, and Shelly's called my office no less than 15 times looking for that $50 she claims I owe her. Shelly says because I wasted her time that she could have spent looking for a job, I owe her $50 and she wants it right now. She is a persistent one because this morning, I get a visit from a man who we'll call Silas, a well-groomed gentleman who hands me a business card from an attorney's office, and he says it would be better if I just paid the money because he's offered to help her sue me for damages. He says this is my last chance to pay up. And I'm thinking, for what? For $50 effing dollars? Like, what the F? He then says that she claims I owe her several hundreds of dollars because she's mowed my lawn several times and I don't have any receipts to prove I paid her at all. I then tell him that I'm astonished that she can pay any money for an attorney when she's broke. He says that when he wins this case, he'll be billing me for court costs, and I'm thinking, oh, heck no. So I put on my best, well-mannered, polite attitude, and I asked him why she felt it was necessary to go this far. He admits that she came to him because, get this, he's her ex-boyfriend. Oh, and not only her ex-boyfriend, but he's her baby daddy as well. I also notice that he says we a lot when talking about Shelly, and I ask him how long they've been apart. It was a random polite conversation, you know? And the guy lights up and says they decided to date other people, but he and Shelly are back together now, and they have been for the past month. And hearing that, I'm thinking, really? So I ask as casually as I can if he was aware that she was spending money going clubbing, and that she had posted several photos to Facebook where she was rubbing against several gentlemen, doing body shots, and even tongue-kissing other guys in one photo. At that, he turns white, and he quickly covers it with, I'm comfortable enough to trust her. She's the mother of my child. You probably misconstrued what you saw, blah blah blah. I then quickly check Facebook on my phone. She's untagged herself, but like an idiot, her friends still have those photos online, so I show him. He then asked where the restroom is, and I pointed out, and then get back to work. He left without saying goodbye. And here's a few things I found out this afternoon. Silas does work for that law firm, but he's not a lawyer. In the morning, I'm gonna have to call them to find out exactly what he does, and ask them why they allowed him to represent himself as one of their attorneys. Do you think they'll be upset? And the other thing is, Shelly and Silas are no longer together. I assume that, like I suspected, she didn't erase incriminating photos from her cell phone. Update number 3. So instead of calling, I decide to get up early this morning and go to the law firm where Silas had a job. The business card he gave me said the offices of legal guy and law dude. You could substitute the names of actual attorneys here, none of which are Silas. As soon as I walk in, I saw Silas sitting at the back of the front room. He looked up, panicked, and I swear to Zeus, the guy shuffles out of the room like he crapped himself. He went into an office and he closed the door behind him. I then asked the receptionist who that guy in the back was, and she says his name's Silas. He's one of our best paralegals. I asked if that meant he could sue someone. At that, she laughs, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's what I thought. I asked if I could talk to him, and she said I'd be better off talking to an attorney, and that the law dude was in the building. I tell her, no thanks, I really need to talk to Silas. She then said, is this a personal thing? I said, well, sort of. She then whispers to me and says, look, Silas has gotten in trouble once this week for personal stuff. Can you wait until lunch when he's out of the office? I tell her I'll be back at 12:45 on my lunch break. If you're busy or gone, I'm sure one of the attorneys here can help me instead. Silas then shows up at my office at 12:20. The guy closes my door, and he sits down, and he looks like he was about to cry. The guy couldn't even look at me, but he mumbled how he was trying to spend some more time with his son, and how he was trying to get on Shelly's good side. He also said how very sorry he was, and how his life was falling apart. The guy said he was trying to get custody of his kid, but it was hard to do because he was trying to go back to school, which took time and money. We then start talking about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I told him how Shelly had mowed every few days, and I was refusing to pay her after the first few times, as she didn't do anything except sit in her car for an hour. He then tells me that it was his idea to pretend to be a lawyer to sue me, to scare me into paying her. Again, he was trying to get on her good side. And at this point, I really wanted to hit this guy, but I managed to stay polite. He then says he doesn't want to make an ugly situation even uglier. I remind him that if he wants custody of his son, he needs to stop doing stupid stuff like this, and that would be a good start. He then says I'll think about it. We talked a bit more, and he said he'll talk to Shelly about the money. He then left my office, and after that, Shelly never bothered me again. My freaking goodness, guys, all of this over a measly $50. And honestly, OP is so nice for not destroying Silas's career after what he did. Like, pretending you're an attorney representing someone to scare somebody into paying up is a huge no-no. And shame on scummy Shelly for trying to suck money out of OP for absolutely nothing, right? Like, the mowing thing had me shaking my head so hard. Oh, I mowed your lawn every single day this week, so give me money. But hey, that's entitled people for you, right? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled people episode, another one, where psycho Karens are causing trouble in hospitals and attacking doctors. Guys, it's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.